Andrew Carnegie was born in Dunfermline, Scotland on November 25, 1835. In 1836, the family moved to a larger house in Edgar Street. He was educated at the Free School in Dunfermline. Struggling to make ends meet, the Carnegies decided to move to Allegheny, Pennsylvania, in the United States. In 1848, Allegheny was a growing industrial area that produced many products including wool and cotton cloth. His first job at age 13 in 1848 was as a bobbin boy, changing spools of threads in a cotton mill 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, in a Pittsburgh cotton factory. In 1848, Carnegie became a telegraph messenger boy in the Pittsburgh office of the Ohio Telegraph Company. He developed the ability to translate signals by ear without using the paper slip, and within a year was promoted to operator. Starting in 1853, Thomas A. Scott of the Pennsylvania Railroad Company employed Carnegie as a secretary/telegraph operator at a salary of $4 per week. On December 1st, 1859, Carnegie officially became superintendent of the Western Division. Carnegie then hired his 16-year-old brother, Tom, to be his personal secretary and telegraph operator. Not only did Carnegie hire his brother, but he also hired his cousin, Maria Hogan, who became the first female telegraph operator in the country. Scott also helped him with his first investments. In 1855, Scott made it possible for Carnegie to invest $500 in the Adams Express, which contracted with the Pennsylvania to carry its messengers. The young Carnegie continued to work for the Pennsylvania's Tom Scott and introduced several improvements in the service. In spring 1861, Carnegie was appointed by Scott, who was now Assistant Secretary of War, as superintendent of the military railroads and the Union government's telegraph lines in the East. After the American Civil War, Carnegie left the railroads to devote all his energies to the ironworks trade. Carnegie worked to develop several ironworks, eventually formed the Keystone Bridge Works and the Union Iron Works in Pittsburgh. Although he had left the Pennsylvania Railroad Company, he remained closely connected to its management, namely Thomas A. Scott and J. Edgar Thomas. He used his connection to the two men to acquire contracts for his Keystone Bridge Company and the rails produced by his ironworks. As well as having good business sense, Carnegie possessed charm and literary knowledge. He was invited to many important social functions that Carnegie exploited to his own advantage. In 1881, Carnegie took his family, including his 70-year-old mother, on a trip to the United Kingdom. They toured Scotland by coach and enjoyed several receptions en route. The highlight was a return to Dunfermline, where Carnegie's mother laid the foundation stone of a Carnegie Library, which he funded. Following his tour of the UK, he wrote about his experiences in a book entitled An American Four in Hand in Britain. In 1885, he gave $500,000 to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for a public library, and in 1886 he gave $250,000 to Allegheny City for a music hall and library, and $250,000 to Edinburgh, Scotland for a free library. In total, Carnegie funded some 3,000 libraries located in 47 U.S. states, and also in Canada, the United Kingdom, what is now the Republic of Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, the West Indies, and Fiji. He also donated £50,000 to help set up the University of Birmingham in 1899. In 1886, Carnegie wrote his most radical work to date, entitled Triumphant Democracy. Liberal in its use of statistics to make its argument, the book argued his view that the American Republican system of government was superior to the British monarchical system. It gave a highly favorable and idealized view of American progress and criticized the British royal family. The book created considerable controversy in the UK and sold over 40,000 copies, mostly in the US. Carnegie did not want to marry during his mother's lifetime, instead choosing to take care of her in her illness towards the end of her life. After she died in 1886, the 50-year-old Carnegie married Louise Whitfield, who was 21 years his junior. In 1897, the couple had their only child, a daughter, whom they named after Carnegie's mother, Margaret. Carnegie made his fortune in the steel industry, controlling the most extensive integrated iron and steel operations ever owned by an individual in the United States. One of his two great innovations was in the cheap and efficient mass production of steel by adopting and adapting the Bessemer process for steelmaking. The steel price dropped as a direct result, and Bessemer steel was rapidly adopted for rails. However, it was not suitable for building and bridges. By 1889, the U.S. output of steel exceeded that of the UK, and Carnegie owned a large part of it. Carnegie's empire grew to include the J. Edgar Thomas Steelworks, Pittsburgh Bessemer Steelworks, the Lucy Furnaces, the Union Iron Mills, the Union Mills, the Keystone Bridge Works, the Hartman Steel Works, the Frick Coke Company, and the Scotia Ore Mines. Also in 1889, Carnegie published Wealth in the June issue of the North American Review. In its publication in England, it appeared as the Gospel of Wealth in the Pall Mall Gazette. Carnegie argued that the life of a wealthy industrialist should comprise two parts. The first part was the gathering and accumulation of wealth. The second part was the subsequent distribution of this wealth to benevolent causes. Philanthropy was key to making life worthwhile. As the end of the Spanish-American War neared, the United States bought the Philippines from Spain at $20 million. He strongly opposed the annexation of the Philippines. In 1898, Carnegie tried to arrange an independence for the Philippines. To counter what he perceived as imperialism on the part of the United States, Carnegie personally offered $20 million to the Philippines so that the Filipino people could buy their independence from the United States. However, nothing came of the offer. In 1898, Carnegie joined the American Anti-Imperialist League in opposition of the U.S. annexation of the Philippines. In 1901, Carnegie was 66 years of age and considering retirement. John P. Morgan was a banker and perhaps America's most important financial dealmaker. He concluded negotiations on March 2, 1901, and formed the United States Steel Corporation. The buyout is the largest industrial takeover in the United States history to date. The holdings were incorporated in the United States Steel Corporation, a trust organized by Morgan, and Carnegie retired from business. His steel enterprises were bought out at a figure equivalent to 12 times their annual earnings. Carnegie's share of this amounted to $225,639, which was paid to Carnegie in the form of 5% 50-year-old bonds. The bonds were to be delivered to the Hudson Trust Company of Hoboken, New Jersey. In trust, there a special vault was built to house the physical bulk of nearly $230 million worth of bonds. Carnegie constructed commodious swimming baths for the people of his hometown in Dunfermline, Scotland in 1879. In the following year, Carnegie gave £8,000 for the establishment of the Dunfermline Carnegie Library in Scotland. In 1884, he gave $50,000 to Bellevue Hospital Medical College to found a histological laboratory, now called the Carnegie Laboratory. Carnegie spent his last years as a philanthropist. From 1901 forward, public attention was turned from the shrewd business acumen which had enabled Carnegie to accumulate such a fortune to the public-inspired way in which he devoted himself to utilizing it on philanthropic projects. He then devoted his life to providing the capital for purpose of public interest and social and educational advancement. In 1900, Carnegie gave $2 million to start the Carnegie Institute of Technology at Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. CIT is now known as Carnegie Mellon University after it merged with the Mellon Institute. In 1914, on the eve of the First World War, Carnegie founded the Church Peace Union, a group of leaders in religious. Through the Church Peace Union, Carnegie hoped to mobilize the world's churches, religious organizations, and other spiritual and moral resources to join in promoting moral leadership to put an end to war forever. For its inaugural international event, the Church Peace Union sponsored a conference to be held on August 1st, 1914, on the shores of Lake Constance in southern Germany. As the delegates made their way to the conference by train, the German army was invading Belgium. Carnegie died on August 11, 1919, in Lenox, Massachusetts, at his Shadow Brook estate, of bronchial pneumonia. He had already given away $350,695,653 of his wealth. After his death, his last $30 million was given to foundations, charities, and to pensioners.